Hi everyone, Rob Gabriele here, managing editor of SafeHome.org. If you're at all concerned about identity theft and how to safeguard your family, Aura is a digital safety solution that protects your identity, devices, and finances. Today I'm speaking with Aura's Chief Technical Officer, Ryan Toohil. Ryan is a wealth of information on how to keep our families digitally secure. Today we're covering things like the warning signs of identity theft, specific cyber attacks to be aware of, and more. All right, Ryan, let's go ahead and get started here. About identity theft, how much of a threat is it really for families? And do you happen to have any stats or figures to share with us today?
Sure. According to the FTC from 2021, every 6 seconds, there's a victim of identity theft in the United States. Basically, during the pandemic, there's been a 2x increase of cases. Obviously, lots of folks sitting at home, not being out and about, and with sort of some of the compensation coming from the government, greater incentive to steal folks' identity to get access to those funds. And similarly, just a massive increase of sort of online identity fraud during the same period, 18% in 2021 over 2020. So in the last few years, this has been an increasing problem as we go about our lives even more digitally than we were before.
Okay, and what are some of the ways that bad actors can get their hands on our identity?
So some of the most common ways that you'd be familiar with, data breaches. We all go shopping online. We give everybody, every company in the world access to our data in exchange for a discount here, a little access there. And so in the last couple of years, there's been thousands of data breaches, 4,000 in 2021, and billions of records of access. So in some cases, that might just be your password and username, which may seem innocuous, but those can get reused across other sites. If you're one of the very, very, average everyday people who might use their same password in an email account that they use at their, Yahoo Fantasy Sports account, you don't realize that Yahoo breach may impact the way, you access your email, in which case folks can get access to everything else belonging to you. Beyond that, as we've pushed out more and more things, you get credit card offers in the mail, you get information in the mail. Stealing that mail becomes a way that your data gets stolen. And more of these days, you'll see access to phishing and social engineering scams. Those two things are becoming more and more tightly aligned, where whether it be you're in a high flyer who's got access to lots of data or funds. Maybe you're involved in the crypto world. Maybe you just have access to something that's of interest to someone else. And there's been lots of stories about that being like a really attractive Instagram handle. Phishing and social media engineering, or social engineering, can become ways that folks can use that data that was breached about you online and give you some really targeted questions to elicit the answers they might need to convince your bank, your credit card company that they're you, and then get access to your accounts that way. These are things that are becoming more and more common as we live our lives more and more digitally.
And what are some warning signs of identity theft that we might want to look out for?
So if you see strange charges in your credit card or on your bank account, you see, you happen to notice, you get an email or you get a letter in the mail saying, "Oh, congratulations on opening this new account and congratulations on opening this new credit card." Big changes in your credit score that are unaccounted for, getting calls tracking down debt or medical bills, or quite frankly, income tax or loan repayment. One very common one was from the PPP loans that the government issued. Folks getting calls and saying, "Well, you need to repay this now." And the person saying, I don't know what that is." Those are pretty big and obvious signs. If you start seeing two-factor, if you're using a two-factor app or SMS or email to do two-factor and you're getting alerts about those on your phone for an account that you're not currently logging into, those can be signs that some aspect of your identity may have been breached.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that fraudsters can actually go after the identities of children and even the recently deceased. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So if you think about the most obvious targets, you and I, we access our bank accounts pretty frequently. We're actually credit card bills. We have long credit history, so big changes there not only alert us, but they alert the providers, the credit card companies, the banks, what have you. Children have pristine social security accounts. They have no credit history. They have no sort of negative impact on their credit scores. And so the same can be true for the deceased, where their social security number has been sort of put back into service, let's call it. In those cases, those social security numbers and identities are often used to create sort of synthetic identities, where you've now got a real social security number, a real identity, a real address, that when you go open a bank account, when you go open a credit card number as a fraudster, here's this pristine information to go open an account. No one, shouldn't say no one, but few people are paying attention to their kids' credit score, credit history, because they don't have one. You don't expect, my children are 4 years old. I don't expect them to go open a credit card. So I'm not really daily paying attention to that information. And quite frequently, these can be in cases of family strife, maybe a family going through a separation, and it can be someone close to the child who has access to all that information that can perpetrate that fraud. Over 1 million children were victims of identity theft last year. That's grown about 25% over the last 4 years, and nearly $1 billion were lost to child identity fraud in 2021. On the deceased side, even just the elderly, you run into cases where, quite frankly, and you again, this is a really common, you'll hear about news stories about this. They're in many cases, and while the sort of older generation is getting more and more tech savvy, many of them are still unfamiliar with these common tactics. And so those, let's call it pray and spray attempts of just blanket calling everyone and saying, I'm your grandchild, or I'm the government, you need to pay us. They don't need to hit very often to lead to big returns for the fraudsters.
Yeah. And so what are some specific attacks when browsing the web or interacting on social media, especially for our children? Like, what are some things that parents might want to look out for?
I think phishing and social engineering attacks are really commonly executed against children. Particularly these days, children are often doing things like they're not sophisticated when it comes to they're trusting, they're naive, they're not sophisticated that this person asking information might want to use it for nefarious and for nefarious reasons. So it can happen in places like just browsing the web or email, Twitter, Facebook. It can also happen other places as communities build up around Roblox or other social games. Those are places that are ripe for fraudsters to go in and elicit information from children, and sometimes use children as a vector to get into social engineering their parents' information. You're a parent, you're busy, your kid's online playing a game, and you're happy because you've got half hour apiece. You don't think twice when your kid asks you, hey, what's our favorite food? Or hey, what was the first address that you lived at? Or what was your first pet's name? But as a parent, you may be giving an answer to a fraudster through your child that is a security question that can be used to then access more sensitive information. Go one step further. Everyone's familiar with cyberbullying that happens to children online today. Obviously not limited to children, happens to everyone. Children are very, very trusting when it comes to online relationships. And so they are greatly at risk for being hit with the attacks that we would consider not sophisticated, that we might sniff out in a second. They won't sniff out, but then also can be access to cyberbullying or be cyberbullied into then giving information that can give access to further sort of impact their lives or the lives of their families.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about Aura, maybe your longer term vision and some of the things that you're working on solving?
So everything we've just talked about are the things that we're working on solving. We're all families, and we recognize that so many of the security solutions are aimed at individuals, and quite frankly, often aimed at sort of technically sophisticated individuals. We're trying to evolve sort of your common security platforms to be more personalized, more predictive, and more proactive. We call it intelligent safety, where we're taking what we know about you and then layering a level of sort of AI and intelligence on top of that to be able to sniff out when these things are coming. We've got solutions to help protect your kids by limiting where they can go, but then also watching their social security number, watching their credit history if one exists, to alert you when there's problems there. If we can see trends across the different facets of your security, we can then identify, oh, we've seen, a problem with on your machine, a problem on your device, a problem with your credit history, and then your child's social security number was impacted. That could show a trend that we could identify as being a higher risk to you and lock your accounts down. Whereas if you're solving your problem by having 3 or 4 different point solutions, they're not sharing that data across those solutions. And that data remains in a silo where it can't be put together to make a more protective, holistic sort of solution to solve your problem. This year, we've actually launched a non-integrated parental control solution just last month. And later this year in Q3, we'll be launching parental controls fully integrated with our product. One of the great things that I think we're focused on that we've launched a limited version of so far, but an even bigger version of in the second half of this year is dealing with those data breaches, something we call automated password change. Frequently, you'll get from your security provider, hey, your password here has been breached, your password there has been breached, your password there's been breached, you should go change them. And if you're like most people we talk to, okay, that's another thing I'll put on my list and I'll get to 2, 3, 4 months from now. We're building it out so you can just click a button and we'll go through behind the scenes and just change it for you, store it in the password manager, and you don't have to do anything. Or's goal is to build more personalized, proactive, and predictive security for consumers. We call this intelligent safety. We take the data from across the various solutions that we provide you with and use that data to build a tailored solution to you so that when we identify challenges across the totality of surface area, we can solve a problem specifically for you and make a unique solution that solves your problems and your family's problems, not just provide more angst for you by giving you loads and loads of data on what to deal with.
Okay. And that about wraps up our time for today. Again, thank you so much, Ryan, for sitting and talking with me and imparting your wisdom on our viewers.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. And with that, signing off with SafeHome.